Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Wednesday edition of All Access AM. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for joining us. It is going to be one of those shows where we have so much to get to, and I am not sure we're going to have enough time, but it is going to be an awesome show. Really excited for you guys to join me on this. We're going to have On Three's Pete Nakos join us, but not only that, we're going to have Rivals.com and On3.com analyst Steve Wiltfong join us as well. These are the two GOATs right now walking around when it comes to the transfer portal, coaching carousel, recruiting news and scoop. You guys are going to have them both on the show today talking about the ACC and recruiting, talking ACC Transfer Portal, coaching carousel, and all sorts of things. So really excited to have them on with us, and we're looking forward to having them on. We have so much to talk about with the ACC schedule coming out as well, and I want to react to that in just a moment as well, as we are joined by our friend Fig Tower, maybe PHIGH Phi Tower. Appreciate you jumping in with us this morning on this Wednesday. Steve Wiltfong running just a tad late. He is a busy man. He's got some calls to make, and then he's going to join us in a little bit, from what I understand. And he just texted me, and that's what kind of threw me just a moment. But we're going to have Pete Nakos at 7:45 a.m. Central Time. So looking forward to that. Going to have them do some intel for you guys on the fly with some major transfers happening over the last couple days. Philip from Colorado, there he is. Thank you for chiming in. We appreciate that. Let's get into the ACC schedule release. But before we do, we are presented by on Wednesdays our friends at OPW Solutions. OPW Solutions, they are your best-in-class commercial services company that work with reliability, integrity, and care. They're fully insured. They're bonded as well. They work in North Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I just saw they opened a new warehouse to help better serve the Norman community, which is going to need all sorts of commercial landscape work after the college football playoff home game they're hosting this weekend. So whether it be your commercial landscaping, your power washing, your snow and ice control, your fence repair, Christmas lights, parking lot services, and more, OPW Solutions can help you manage all of that. So make sure you reach out to them today to get your 2026 started off on the right path with 214-444-2305. A call right there will save you so much pain and time dealing with some of this stuff as a business owner. You could also email them info@opwsolutions.com. Again, opwsolutions.com is where you can find more on what OPW Solutions can offer you. Like I said, it is a jam-packed show. Steve Wiltfong will join us at 7:20 a.m. Central Time. The coaching carousel continues to turn, but also the transfer portal is really heating up. I saw somebody tweet something that was very on point, and you could tell which schools pay their players on the 15th because we saw plenty of announcements come down on, what is it, Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday of this week. So things are heating up. Steve is going to join us to talk about some of that, as well as Pete Nakos will hit on some of that with some ACC schools involved with some huge transfers. Okay, enough with me fumbling away the beginning of this show. You ever have those mornings where if you're a parent, you got to get the booger sucker out for your kid, and you got to hold them down, and you got to get those out, and they're going to wrestle, they're going to scream. Well, not only did I just do that, not kidding. My son Jack certainly has had his cases of all of the daycare bugs going around this holiday season, and I ran right in here right at 7:01 to start the show. But that is what it feels like when the ACC is going through this scheduling model change. They're having to arm wrestle all sorts of different programs to figure out scheduling conflicts, to figure out well, we're going to play 12 teams this year, 5 teams next year. We're going to always have one rotating 8-game slate of conference games. It is a mess. The ACC schedule model that was just released on Tuesday, the updated 2026 conference opponents came out. The ACC is moving to a 9-game schedule. And I've said this on this podcast, it is the best thing the league can do. It gets more games out there. That allows for more opportunities to maybe not allow what happened to Duke to happen, where you have a 7-5 team get into your conference championship game because they ended up doing what you would hope they would do: fight, battle, and eventually win as many conference games as they could. And they end up winning the conference, and everything is thrown into a complete mess around when talking about this league and who is going to represent it, and the lack of opportunity for this league to be represented in the college football playoff. So the league needed to move to 9 games. And they got that done with 12 teams for the 2026 season. It is the transition year. 5 teams are going to play a 8-game conference slate. They are Boston College, Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina. And some of that has to do with scheduling conflicts. Some of that has to do with just kind of making it all work. And then they're going to have one team starting in 2027 rotate around, with it being one 8-game schedule, from what I understand. So pretty good opportunity for the league to get to what will amount to a 9-game conference schedule. And when you look at what the ACC gets from that, they get further clarity with what their programs are going to have as far as win-loss record in the conference. That should is a key word, allow the cream of the crop with the terms of the teams that, like a Miami, who took care of business in a non-conference situation with wins against Notre Dame, Florida, USF, that whole slate that they played. It'll allow them that opportunity to maybe have had one more game on their slate that was a league game, and then they end up getting that extra win that pushes them over the top at a 7-2 to get to Charlotte. Maybe that game would have been against Duke. Funny enough, Miami and Duke were added to the schedule for 2026 in the ACC play part of things. And I'm not going to go into who got added what and this and that and the shifting around. The league didn't announce that, just I think for clarity, so good on them. But you will have some teams pick up games that positively impact them and negatively impact them. There are teams now that, when you look at these schedules, have advantageous ways to get to Charlotte. And they also got added one more game that, going into the year, you would think they should feel good about getting that extra game added as far as what it provided to them in the projected win-loss column. And that is what we have to go off of. We don't know which team next year will be the Wake Forest of the ACC, that the Wake Forest of the 2026 season, which climbs out of the cellar to win a bunch of games in league play and get all that done. We don't know. So somebody's treasure today might be the trash of tomorrow, in a sense of who they got added. But the league had to get to 9 games. It had to. They accomplished that. And it is a big day in that regard. And despite the mess that they're going to have to deal with as far as 2026 potentially, with teams playing an 8-game and a 9-game schedule, you're going to have clarity more likely than not, with some teams that should have another loss, maybe don't have another, things like that. And I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, wow, this is all great and this is all well and good. This has started from conferences being too big. This has started from college football and realignment that has gone out of whack. Like, that's why we're all in this position. If the ACC was an 18-team league, obviously it would be huge, but at least it'd be even and we wouldn't have any sort of mess at all. But all of this is not necessarily the ACC's fault either. They added SMU, Clemson, SMU, Cal, and Stanford to help solidify the league and be in a position where they should be on a stronger path moving forward. Moving to a 9-game schedule helps that. And it gives the ACC another opportunity to get a better quality game on an ESPN, on a ESPN2, on a maybe even an ABC. So that's another positive of this as well, that ESPN obviously had to approve this piece as well of that puzzle. So fascinating time in terms of the schedule and how they're going to eventually announce the tiebreaker as well for this. But it is a much better deal for the ACC to get to 9 games, and especially starting in 2027, where there's just going to be that one team hanging out in the 8-game purgatory. That is a good thing. And so I'm interested to see what the tiebreaker looks like, what the changes come from that. But you also have a league that needed to get to 9 games. It helps in so many ways. And with this bigger conference, they needed to do it. So good on the ACC for getting it done and not waiting until, a shoe to drop. I think this is a good sign that they're being maybe a little bit more aggressive. So I think that was something that was good to see if you're an ACC fan. And despite the messaging around it, with the mess that it's going to potentially create as far as tiebreakers go, you're in a better spot here overall. So we'll get into kind of later on, probably more off season, the ins and outs of these schedules when we do maybe some off season looks at some of these programs in the ACC and where they stand. But you're looking at a schedule that has an additional conference game on it now, and the ACC has made sure that teams are going to be playing a minimum of 10 Power 4 opponents annually, 9 ACC games plus a non-conference Power 4 game, or, in the other occasion, 8 ACC games with 2 Power 4 games. So this is a good scheduling shift that we've seen from the ACC, and we shall see how it goes. But yeah, they took it on the chin a little bit as far as the overall setup. But the better news is it's not going to be the laughing stock of college football, because the 9-game schedule should lead to more clarity in terms of win-loss and take some teams out of contention. That's the hope. We'll see if some of the chaos rains down once again when we get into the league play and how it all plays out. So fascinating stuff there for the ACC, and we will continue to break all that stuff down as it comes through, whether it be the tiebreaker or some other points of clarity when it comes to the league scheduling. So appreciate you guys being here on this Wednesday. It is a really fun week, with bowl season really heating up, with the college football playoff starting on Friday night, Saturday, all day football watching. Let's do this as we wait. Oh, we do have Steve Wiltfong in. So this is perfect. So look, we are going to bring in our friend Steve Wiltfong right now. He is joining us via phone. So excited to have Steve Wiltfong on with us now. Steve, thanks so much for the time this morning. We're excited to have you on. How are you doing in this crazy day and age of kid drop-off and transfer portal?
Hey, good morning, Billy. Doing well, man. This is the time of year to shine. Obviously, roster retention is a big deal around these college football programs right now. We're seeing them announce new deals, which is wild. Obviously, we've never seen schools offer new deals as part of announcing retention and bringing guys back. So it's certainly a new era of college football that continues to evolve and develop. And some of these programs are roster retention while preparing for the college football playoff.
Yeah, it is wild. And one of the teams that is not doing any work for the college football playoff right now is Florida. And they just lost former 5-star quarterback DJ Lagway to the transfer portal. This is a fascinating scenario, though, as one team in particular from the ACC has been kind of reported as in contact. Louisville is among the schools that is reaching out, as is Miami here.
Well, DJ Lagway, just kind of talking to his representation during the coaching change, Coach Brom was someone that I think that they would have been very excited about getting the job at Florida because of his offensive acumen and how he's been able to develop quarterbacks that have come to him through the transfer portal, his innovative offensive mind. And so easy to see why Louisville is a program of interest for DJ Lagway right now.
And when you look at a program like Miami and what Miami is looking to do in the portal, what is your sense going into the transfer portal world where they're trying to find the quarterback of their future with Carson Beck on the way out as well?
Well, I think that they have a lot of ammunition to talk to the best quarterbacks in the country in the transfer portal because of the success that they've had through the portal. Cam Ward comes in and ultimately becomes the number one pick in the NFL draft. And Carson Beck is amongst the leaders in a lot of passing categories in the ACC, including quarterback rating, has Miami playing in the college football playoff this weekend. Miami is a place where they invest in that position. And so there's a lot to like if you're a high profile transfer portal quarterback. And I think the Miami roster holistically has gotten more talented every year of the Mario Cristobal era. So whoever takes the captain's chair next year has a chance to be out there with one of Miami's more talented rosters.
And when you look at Mario Cristobal, just a recruiter at heart, let's stop there for just a moment and talk about this top-ranked recruiting class in the ACC. Miami getting it done on the trail once again and landing a class that sits inside the top 10. They landed a 5-star in Jackson Cantwell. Let's go back to that recruitment. What stood out to you about the job Miami did with Jackson Cantwell?
Well, that was a modern recruitment with a flair of old school recruiting. He wanted to play for who he thought was the best offensive line coach in the country. And he thinks it's Coach Mirabal, has always thought that. And the cohesion and chemistry that Coach Mirabal and Coach Cristobal have together, the emphasis on the offensive line, Coach Cristobal's track record of coaching that position, guys like Panay Sewell. He saw the proof in the pudding that Miami can develop offensive linemen at a high level, Francis Maigoa being the latest. Then certainly being able to be competitive in the market of modern recruiting also helped Miami in this recruitment. So it was a combination of both. They beat Georgia, they beat Oregon. For Jackson Cantwell, there were times where Georgia led. Oregon was always a school of interest. But Miami, nobody recruited him harder than Miami. The outreach from Cristobal, Coach Mirabal, those coaches connected with him more than any other coach in the process. So yes, Miami checked all the boxes from a modern recruiting standpoint, but they also built a great relationship with Jackson Cantwell, and he believes it's the program that can get the best out of him as a player.
When you look at schools like Clemson that kind of fell off, you look at Florida State that is trying to claw its way back. Those two end up in the top 4 recruiting classes of the ACC, top 25 hauls for them. Have you seen, when you looked at what Clemson has done, any change in their approach, particularly balancing that high school and transfer portal recruiting now?
Well, when you look at this Clemson class, you see a guy like Naeem Burrows and hope that he can evolve into the type of receivers that Clemson had during the glory years. I mean, Clemson has taken a step back as a football program because they just haven't had the same talent that they had when they were competing for national championships and winning 2 of them. They boasted the best quarterback in college football on those teams. They were loaded on the defensive line, and their running back and receiver rooms were stocked full of guys that could put the ball in the end zone on one touch. Clemson has very much struggled to land difference makers out on the perimeter and a quarterback that is an absolute game changer. And so you look at this class, they added Naeem Burrows, Connor Salmon's a receiver that can really run. And you hope that Tate Reynolds is maybe the guy that can evolve into one of those elite quarterbacks on the next level. But you don't see in this class that elite defensive line group that helped catapult Clemson to so many championships in the ACC and put them in playoff contention. And that was always one of their calling cards. And even when they weren't maybe competing for a national title, but they were a program that was going to be in the college football playoff, they were still dominant in the front 7. And that was spearheaded by the defensive line. So we'll see what happens with Clemson. And then Florida State, number 2 class in the ACC, number 14 nationally. I think defensively, this is an exciting class. If you're Florida State, these are some guys that can really help your program get back on track. There's just not going to be a lot of time. They have to win now. So the transfer portal is going to be massive for Florida State. They have to find a difference maker at quarterback. That's certainly where it begins. Everybody knows that. But this is a recruiting class that defensively checks a lot of boxes. Got some weapons at the wide receiver position in Jason Lopez and Devin Carter. But Florida State transfer portal heavy, or I don't see much of a change for them this coming fall.
And I look at the ACC with the quarterback position as we transition a little bit back to that transfer portal era that we're in right now. One guy who is necessarily a Miami target early on. It's weird how we talk about things like this, but a guy like CJ Bailey, who I thought has done a terrific job of doing more with less at NC State. He's a South Florida native, Miami in the market for a quarterback, of course. Is there any buzz building around the retention of CJ Bailey, or, Miami or other programs looking into him?
Well, obviously in this era, CJ Bailey, someone that you're going to mark as a player that could be primed to go into the portal and would bring a lot of excitement around him. Miami's a place that I think will be able to land one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the portal. So it'll be interesting to see who they decide to go on. And Florida State, I want to bring it back to Florida State real quick, Billy. Their football team this year, their offensive line is going to have a lot of turnover at the end of the season, which might be a good thing, but certainly still need to get able-bodied players in there that can play at a high level in the ACC, or the Coach Norvell era comes to an end after this season. Did I lose you, Billy?
They get Herb Hand in there. They get Gus Malzahn in there to be the offensive coordinator. It looked like Tommy Castellanos took steps in the right direction, but just not enough consistency. So they're trying to find that, and it sounds like they're getting some overhauls in the personnel department as well. But one program that did see a lot of overhaul this offseason, Virginia Tech. You're very familiar with James Franklin's work. He's an outstanding football coach, a great recruiter as well. Virginia Tech has seen that pay off in dividends in a big way.
Yeah, when he walked in the door, they had the nation's number 108 or 118th ranked recruiting class, got up to number 27. A lot of these guys were committed to James Franklin and his off-field staff at Penn State. But look, with James Franklin, you're going to get a guy that's going to bring in a culture, a hard-nosed football team that's going to get after you defensively, make a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage, be physical, be not scared to play against any opponent week in and week out. Offensively, they're going to want to run the ball. And so I think it was a tremendous hire. 12 years at Penn State, several New Year's Six Bowls, a Big Ten championship, a college football playoff Final Four appearance. Those New Year's Six Bowls in today's era, that would equate to college football playoff appearances. I think Penn State would have been a regular in the college football playoff under the current landscape under Coach Franklin. And he's brought a lot of excitement to Virginia Tech, and I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he's reinvigorated. He's excited to be in Blacksburg and ready to show Penn State and the brass there that they made a mistake letting him go midway through his 12th season at Penn State with all the success they had. And he was able to quickly show that the relationships that he has on the recruiting trail translated. Those were guys that had a connection with James Franklin. It's not like Brian Kelly at LSU where the recruits don't know you, or at Notre Dame. And so you take a new job, they follow. These recruits knew James Franklin, knew him for years. So when Terry Wiggins, 4-star linebacker, Messiah Mickens, 4-star running back, they see James Franklin take a job to Virginia Tech, they want to follow him because they connected with him. They trust him. They know his resume, what he's been able to do, the players he's developed in every position room. Quarterback Troy Hune, he was waiting on where James Franklin landed, 4-star quarterback from California. He lands at Virginia Tech, quickly sets up a visit, ends up in the fold for the Hokies. So he's a player's coach, looks out for his players. demands a lot from them on the football field. And it's been a long time since Virginia Tech's been relevant, but they're going to head into the season looking to have a quick turnaround. It'll be exciting to see what they do in the transfer portal, and it won't be long before they're one of the class teams in the ACC.
You hear a lot about investment and spending these days. Virginia Tech getting into the mix right away for another highly touted quarterback, a top 100 prospect in Peter Bork. You had a report on On3 and Rivals.com. Make sure you guys pick up a subscription for just $1 to see what Steve Wiltfong and others are reporting out there. But Peter Bork is an interesting name that has been committed to Michigan. He's a well-known name nationally. Is there any little tidbits you can share to get the people going out there about how Virginia Tech is doing recruiting him?
Well, Penn State was the runner-up for Peter during his process, and he's got great relationships with James Franklin, Coach Danny O'Brien, the quarterback's coach there. And with the uncertainty around the Michigan program right now, it has opened the door, sort of given Peter a hall pass to look around and see what else is out there. Matt Campbell and the new Penn State staff has also extended a scholarship, and they have a quarterback track record on the next level. But James Franklin, what he's done holistically, Peter and his family are very aware and know that coaching staff well. And that offer from Virginia Tech, I think, will be an interesting one to monitor moving forward.
When you look at the ACC, are there any schools in particular that really caught your eye this recruiting cycle? Obviously, the finish from Virginia Tech was outstanding, and what they were able to put together with James Franklin. But this is a league that needs to level up a little bit on the recruiting trail. You're seeing the investment from Virginia Tech. Clemson's always among the top. Miami, we know. Other programs, but are there any in particular that maybe caught your eye?
Well, SMU had a top 25 recruiting class, heavy around the point of attack on both sides of the football. I think that's a class that will obviously keep them in contention for the ACC for a long time. In North Carolina, 40 high school players put pen to paper in favor of the Tar Heels. And as they look to rebuild this program in Chapel Hill under Hall of Fame coach Bill Belichick, I think that they are taking the long game approach, and they're invested in building this program right, grassroots through the prep levels, and supplementing their roster through the transfer portal. That's the recipe to win at a high level, good high school foundational recruiting, and then use the transfer portal to upgrade a position room or add a difference maker. 40 high school players signed with North Carolina in the 2026 class, a class that finished number 18 nationally.
It is always interesting to follow the recruiting world through your eyes, Steve. And one last thing, just tell people, what's your day like, when you're going through it right now in this crazy time of year, and we'll get you out of here before we take any more time up.
Look, no different than others. We, wake up, punch the clock, work the phone line, shake some trees. Connections reach out to you, you reach out, put some feelers out there, and next thing you know, the day is over. And sometimes we work evenings in this business.
Awesome. Steve, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it, and can't wait to catch up again next time.
Yeah, take care. Happy holidays, everyone.
All right, there you go. Steve Wiltfong, one of the legends in this business. We really appreciate his time in this busy season. Like you said, happy holidays. And in the holiday spirit, let's talk about one of our supporters. The La La Land Foundation is one of the most incredible groups that I've been lucky enough to be a part of. And the La La Land Foundation is built on kindness. It is a movement that is an extension of the La La Land Kind Cafe, which you should go to lalalandcafe.com to find your local La La Land cafe, lalalandkindcafe.com, and find your local La La Land to learn more about what it's all about. When you walk in a La La Land Kind Cafe, you feel the kindness. You feel that it's genuine, and it starts at the top, everybody involved, and it has now taken form in this foundation. And we encourage you, as you get closer to moving into 2026, to find ways to get involved with the La La Land Foundation, whether it's monetary donations, whether it be in kind, whether it be through events or mentorship. This is a foundation based on helping young adults really move into true adulthood as they transition out of some tough situations, the foster care system, certain things like that. And it is astounding to watch these young people turn into real life adults. Like Steve said, we punch the clock, we do all these things. But the La La Land Foundation is also about helping them turn into really just people, and how you operate on a day-to-day basis, things that most people take for granted as far as knowing what to do or social settings and things like that. The La La Land Foundation helps make the world a better place. And it starts with the kindness that it shares with everyone that it comes in contact with. So thrilled to be a part of the La La Land Foundation's work. And if you're also looking to support from a corporate level, they're looking for that as well as they continue to expand. If you want to go and find out different ways to get involved, there's a tab on their website, and you can do that. You can donate in kind. You can do the corporate sponsorship route. You can volunteer. So this holiday season, think about how to get your 2026 off to a fresh start as far as what you're involved with, the people you surround yourself with, and consider the La La Land Foundation. It's an outstanding way to support young people and make the world truly a better place with our friends at the La La Land Foundation. So we appreciate their support of All Access AM. Steve Wiltfong, just a wealth of knowledge. Really can't thank him enough for coming on. It is that time of year where you literally feel like, hey, Steve, or hey, Pete, would you like to come on our show and talk for 15 minutes, as if you're not on the phone enough during the day? So appreciate him coming on. Pete Nakos in about 15 minutes will join us on the show. So excited about that. Do want to touch on a couple things here on ACC basketball, and then we'll get to Pete. I do want to share a reaction to Aaron Philo, the Georgia Tech quarterback entering the transfer portal, or expected to enter the transfer portal, and that entire saga that is unfolding in Atlanta. But tough evening for ACC, the ACC, as Louisville did get blown out, 21 points at Tennessee. A difficult loss for the Cardinals, 83-62. Jacoby Gillespie had 23 points to lead Tennessee to this win. A difficult night for Louisville. Ryan Conwell was able to add 22, but for the most part, this was all Tennessee. It was just a game that Tennessee was able to build a lead at halftime, and then from there they pulled away and just dominated the second half, especially offensively. 49 second half points, just outstanding work from the Volunteers. But it leaves Louisville now 9-2. They're 0-2 away from Louisville as well, so something to monitor there. Obviously, they played a good schedule and things like that, but a difficult loss for the Cardinals. And then Clemson did get a win in good news for the ACC against the SEC. Clemson gets a rivalry win over South Carolina, 68-61. Nice game from Ace Buckner, 19 points on the night for Clemson to lead the way. So Clemson improves to 9-3. They're 7-0 at home, as you would hope in non-conference play, and they continue to move in the right direction there with a win over South Carolina. So big news there for the Tigers to get that win in a rivalry game. Of course, we talked with Jamie Shaw earlier this week. Duke, Texas Tech, Saturday night, 7 p.m. Central on ESPN. Stanford also plays Colorado at 7 p.m. Again, who's doing the scheduling here? Maryland at Virginia, 5 p.m. Central on ESPN. Ohio State against North Carolina, 2 p.m. Central on CBS. That one is being played in Atlanta, so a fun matchup there. And the rest, just kind of some non-conference matchups. So I don't know who schedules these things on the Saturday of the college football playoff, but here we are. Sunday, really, the day after the college football playoff, should be a basketball bonanza. I feel like we're in the holiday season, and it is the right time of year to just forget what day of the week it is. Sports on all day, every day, starting December 20th. If I was in charge, that is what we'd have for the final 11 days of every single year. 11 a.m. Central, all the way to a late night, maybe a little something after dark. And that is how we'd run our holidays around here. So we hope you guys are getting into the holiday spirit and everybody has safe travels coming up this weekend. If you're going somewhere to kind of kick off a long Christmas weekend and get that going. So we appreciate you guys being here. Again, Phil from Colorado in the chat let us off. Been awesome to have all the support. I do want to remind you guys before we get into Aaron Philo talk, please, All Access AM YouTube channel, go and hit that subscribe button for me. If you're sitting there watching on your computer, please scan the QR code that I just put up on the screen. It will take you right to All Access AM YouTube, and it will bring up a prompt that says subscribe, and you click it and you're done. That's it. That's all you have to do. So we appreciate all of you guys who have supported us. The year is coming to a close. We're over 200 subscribers. It'd be fun if we can get to 300 by the end of the year. That would be pretty crazy, actually. That would be on average about 9-ish a day, 8 to 9. So let's make a run here late in the year. So we appreciate all of you guys who have subscribed, but please, it helps the channel so much as we are getting this off the ground. We have so many great sponsors, as well as all of you guys out there who are watching right now, over 300 of you right now live watching on our Twitter feed alone. So we appreciate all of you guys out there. But the way to help is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, All Access AM. So please do that. And we appreciate all of you guys who already have. So housekeeping done. This is a house that is divided, one might say right now, as Aaron Philo is expected to enter the transfer portal and leave Georgia Tech. He was the heir apparent to Haynes King, but with Buster Faulkner leaving Georgia Tech for the Florida offensive coordinator job, he's expected, I mean, truthfully, to follow that man down to Gainesville and go play for him. And this is a really difficult loss for Georgia Tech as Haynes King is out of eligibility now. Philo, well regarded, 59 of 102 over the last 2 seasons for 938 yards, 2 scores, 3 interceptions. He also added 16 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown. He is the state of Georgia's all-time leading passer as well. And I think when you look at Aaron Philo, there's so much to like as far as his ability to throw the football. And Pete Nakos, we'll talk with him a little bit more about the market here. But you have somebody who knows Buster Faulkner's system, so there a lot of things make sense about a reunion there. But man, he was going to kind of bring an element to the Georgia Tech offense that it most certainly needed. I thought Haynes King was outstanding this year, just the way he put the team on his back. We all know that. We all saw it, and it was unbelievable to watch it unfold. But when you see, I think at times, the clunkiness of the offensive attack from a throwing the football perspective, that is something that stood out to me that Aaron Philo was going to change. He's much more of a, believed to be a polished passer than Haynes King, but instead it'll be, Georgia Tech looking for a new option at quarterback. And I think when you see the forecast from our friends at Jackets Online at the quarterback position, who please go subscribe to their site as a part of the On3 network if you're a Georgia Tech fan. But Graham Knowles is a huge, literally and figuratively, man to know now, 6'7", 220. He's a former South Lake Carroll, Texas quarterback right down the road from me, but has really just seen some reserve duty in Georgia Tech's offense earlier in his career against Gardner-Webb. He is now, going to potentially get some time here in the bowl game against BYU if Haynes King obviously maybe wants to protect himself and things like that, or Brent Key needs to find out what he has. But this is one of the names to know in terms of his future quarterback room for Brent Key. He's 1 for 1 in one game for 84 yards and a touchdown. So pretty good start there to his career for Graham Knowles. Again, it was against Gardner-Webb, but still you have somebody who is been around now for a minute and can really maybe be the guy. But I would imagine that puts Georgia Tech in the market for a quarterback at the very minimum. So we'll talk to Pete Nakos about that as well as the impact there in about 5 minutes when Pete joins us. My last thought on Aaron Philo entering the transfer portal, leaving Georgia Tech. He did the right thing by staying and continuing to learn under Haynes King this year and stay in that Buster Faulkner system and show his loyalty. He got rewarded for it, financially. There's no question about that. But in today's day and age of college football, relationships do matter still. And Steve Wiltfong reminded me of that when he was talking about the Jackson Campbell recruitment with Miami. And Buster Faulkner has that relationship with Aaron Philo. And when the Florida job brought him down there, that was kind of it for Aaron Philo from what it seems like. Again, we'll ask Pete, but there still has to be relationships in college football because it is such a unique world and situation that we're all living in. And so when you trust a coach and you see a scheme that fits and you can see your development going on the right track with that coach still, you got to go out and you got to take it. And that's what Aaron Philo appears ready to do. And it's unfortunate for Georgia Tech, and it really puts them in a bad spot because if Aaron Philo would have left, they could have maybe grabbed somebody else to be a quarterback of the future in the past. But instead, now they have to go out and hunt for their own quarterback. At the same time, he could go down to the SEC and not be that guy. So we'll see how it goes for Aaron Philo, and we'll see if his decision ends up being the right one. But a really tough loss for Georgia Tech there as Aaron Philo leaves for the transfer portal. Before we get Pete Nakos on, do want to remind you guys that Doyle Glass is the perfect holiday stocking stuffer, last minute purchase for one of your favorite relatives or friends, or coworkers who's maybe a history buff or whatnot. Doyle Glass is an award-winning best-selling author on Amazon who can deliver firsthand accounts of the Vietnam War and honor the veterans that fought in it and our heroes in that war with Lions of Medina and Swift Sword. So check out this video about Swift Sword, and please go to doyleglass.com for more on how you can purchase his books, whether it be through ebook or the real thing, hardcover or paperback. I've got my paperback book in the drawer next to the bed, and we appreciate Doyle Glass. But please go ahead and grab a copy for your favorite relative today. That's right. Doyle Glass can help you guys finish up your Christmas shopping in the best way there. So appreciate his support of All Access AM as well. Make sure you grab his book today or books and get ready for his World War II one that is coming out later on late 2026, I believe. So we're going to be joined by Pete Nakos in just a moment here to close out the show. Really appreciate you guys being here. Please subscribe to the channel. We are going to talk a bunch about transfer portal quarterbacks. We're going to talk some ACC coaching carousel news as Georgia Tech continues to look for an offensive coordinator to replace Buster Faulkner. If you have any questions for Pete, jump on the YouTube channel, All Access AM, and ask your question to Pete. And if it's worthy of sorts, I will read it to him and see if we can get some intel for you guys. But look, the college football playoff is upon us. The Thursday show, I'm going to reveal my own predictions. We'll talk Texas A&M, Miami as well on the Thursday show. We are live Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time. It's just me and you guys in the chat every single show. So we appreciate you guys for the interaction every single show that we get, and thrilled to have you guys with us. I do want to say this. This is a absolute opportunity for Miami to show that they have turned that corner. They showed that they can finish in November. They started off with a loss against SMU, and they turned around and they won out, and they won out in convincing fashion. And that earned their way into the college football playoff. But don't let future committees, if that's the world that we're going to be in, continue to have this kind of, oh, well, Miami, can they actually do it? Or are they gonna Miami? Kind of like Texas A&M battled most of this year. When is Texas A&M's bottom gonna fall off or fall out? And that didn't happen. They, in a sense, they were able to survive South Carolina, and then they lost to Texas, spoiling a perfect season, but they're still able to get to the college football playoff instead of finishing up 8-4, 7-5, like Texas A&M seems to do. Miami finished out the right way to get into the college football playoff. Ari Wasserman of On3 had a good column that you guys should read. Go to on3.com, pick up a subscription for just $1. And again, he said, Miami can't waste this opportunity. And I agree. And we'll find out more about how they respond and things like that to the opportunity that they're given at 11 a.m. Central Time on Saturday in College Station. It is going to be absolutely crazy down there when it comes to the atmosphere that they are going to be playing in front of all of those 100,000+ Aggies getting ready for their first college football playoff appearance this year. A couple of other news and notes on the transfer portal before Pete gets here, and we'll kind of fly through some of these. But Florida State tight end Randy Pittman entered the transfer portal, and he is somebody who just transferred in to the Florida State program, starting his career at UCF. He played in 25 games for the Knights with 11 starts, but it didn't really come together in Tallahassee. He is out the door and moving on. But when you look at the transfer portal and kind of the world that everybody's living in, I thought this is kind of Miami adjacent relevant, but Mike Elko was asked about the transfer portal timeline, and he said, this is the best we can get. This is the best it could be. So maybe we'll ask Pete about that as well, as far as the windows that they have and the setup that it is currently in place. It's, quote, it's the best we can get. Everybody will continue to point out all the fallacies within the system, but there's not really a solution. So that was an interesting take from Mike Elko on the transfer portal world that we live in, and what the process is to get into the portal, and then the recruiting aspect of it. I thought that was an interesting take. I still think you should treat it as a world where you have your season, it gets done, you finish up with high school recruiting. And here's the kicker of my transfer portal theory and take on all of it, is when you have a world that has, free agency in a sense, you don't place it in still the middle of the draft, right? Like you have a world where you usually have that separation of kind of draft and free agency and things like that. With the transfer portal, this is a world where teams can address their needs, and in the past been able to address their needs twice after seeing what they have in spring ball. I think players should be able to stay where they're at for a spring semester, finish out the academic calendar the right way if they really are student athletes, and let's go through spring ball. Coaches can get a better idea of what they have, what they need, and the fit for all these players in their development. And then they can portal around the summer and then sign their new deals in late May, early June, arrive with their next program, and you consider those truly free agent pickups. 15 spring practices. I mean, let's move those. Let's figure out a change for that. I think with the day and age of the calendar expanding for college football, when it comes to the um, with the college football playoff running as late as it does, we got to maybe be cognizant of that too. Unless we want to shrink it back or move it up a week to week 0, then that's where the calendar needs some fine tuning and tweaking on that respect. And maybe I can still like or change to liking the January portal window, but I still think quote unquote free agency should come after what after what you've experienced with a new staff, after what you've experienced as far as your players and how they responded in the offseason. Did they develop? Did they make a charge into leading the way for a position? All of those things. So I think we're getting there in college football, but we're still a ways away from getting it completely right. And most of that has to do with having potentially collective bargaining in place, and maybe one day we see some sort of universal feel for the way that players are represented, the way that we see some of these programs and colleges be represented to the players, so it's not as much of a okay, we're changing on the fly. I mean, they changed the transfer portal window, what was it, in like September, so that right in the middle of the season they changed it, and they changed the signing date to that first week of December for high school prospects in the early signing period. It's just a mess that everyone is dealing with in this world. So we're really interested to see how it all plays out. But one man who is all over it when it comes to the transfer portal and everything with the coaching carousel is Pete Nakos. Pete, thanks so much for the time this morning. Really appreciate it, buddy.
What's up, man?
Yeah, how are you this morning? Everything in your world just calm, cool? It's that crazy time of year for you.
Yeah, super chill morning.
When you look at a guy like DJ Lagway hopping in the portal, what's your initial reaction when a former 5-star comes on the market like that?
Yeah, things are interesting with DJ Lagway. Things didn't end at Florida the way he and his family envisioned it ending. He met John Summerall last week. I think that there was kind of an agreement that, DJ wasn't going to be guaranteed the starting job. If he wanted to return, he was going to have to, compete for that. I don't know if I have any, really massive reaction to it other than that. I think I kind of stopped going in the last 10 days. Shocking news of this portal cycle. The more interesting thing
We lost you a little.
DJ Lagway. He got everything.
With somebody like DJ Lagway, the fit potentially there in Louisville that he could have. How much is he and quarterbacks like Dylan Raiola really looking at it in that perspective? I mean, in their quote unquote kind of money years of their career.
I think that the
Well, and we lost Pete Nakos there, so that's fine. So what I was getting at there with Pete is Dylan Raiola, the Nebraska quarterback, did enter the transfer portal, or is going to enter the transfer portal later on, and we'll just get back with Pete. The reception there was a little poor there, so we'll figure that out and have him on again. But when we're looking at these quarterbacks, so many of them have been these highly touted, highly recruited guys. And DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola are two of those prime examples this cycle for the transfer portal world. You have those two guys that DJ did a ton out of Willis High School in Texas, just becoming this superstar. Dylan Raiola was kind of a prodigy and truthfully, just watching that unfold, I didn't have a great feeling about how his college career was going to go. And then, I get the whole Patrick Mahomes thing. I don't want to trash a kid, but like, that's just strange down there in Nebraska and doing all the jumping and the haircut and just everything I saw, the Twitter memes and everything like that. But some of these quarterbacks have people around them and worlds that they live in that just don't necessarily live in reality. And I think on Dylan Raiola's case, I think that's probably more of where I'm at. And on DJ Lagway's world, I'm kind of the opposite. I think they understand that this is just business. And, I think there's just been a little bit of drama around Dylan Raiola and kind of that whole thing. And it just kind of lives up to exactly what I saw in high school. And all of the ways that he did this or he did that, it just hasn't matched up. And so what I was getting at with Pete there on the phone was how much of that is going to play into their decision making. Because one thing the Lagway family appears to be sharing with media is that they're going to be looking very closely at this next opportunity and finding the best fit. And that could mean going somewhere that maybe other people don't expect. So going to be fascinating to watch. I will say too, that, and we're going to talk transfer portal and coaching carousel, and we'll just get Pete on at another time. Maybe he's free tomorrow to catch up for a couple minutes. But Duke quarterback Darian Mensah is a quarterback that, Steve Wiltfong, Pete Nakos, they are watching closely to see if he does test the NFL draft waters. That is kind of it seems like the expectation there, but his agent and representation is telling us that they are not going to enter the portal. But whenever you're kind of looking at that next step, I feel like everything could be on the table. So that is something to keep an eye on there with Darian Mensah. We are going to, continue to follow the transfer portal world that we live in and keep you guys as up to date on all of this as we can. And I think watching the suitors emerge for DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola is going to have the trickle down effect for a lot of these quarterback searches around the country. LSU's involved in finding a quarterback as well. But Louisville is a program that is keeping tabs on both DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola. We all know the work that Jeff Brom has been able to do with quarterbacks, Tyler Shook, and what he's done. Look at what he's doing in New Orleans, and looks like he's going to be the quarterback of the future there. But that is going to be a fascinating one to watch from that perspective, because we know the work that Jeff Brom can do with transfer quarterbacks, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens on that front. So we will keep an eye on it there. And Pete Nakos, of course, will get back on the show. He's been on the show before, and we'll certainly have him on again. So looking forward to that when we do get Steve and Pete on again. But the quarterback market, I think, is going to be out of control for colleges that need quarterbacks. So if you are in the world of a Duke, if you're in the world of a SMU with Kevin Jennings coming back, if you're in the world of CJ Bailey for NC State, it's imperative that you lock those guys in, because otherwise you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to get a new quarterback, and it's going to cost you just an exorbitant amount of money in the transfer portal to go get. So it is a really difficult time to be in the market for a quarterback, but there are options. Drew Mestemaker out of North Texas is in the portal, or expected to be in the portal. Certainly a robust market is emerging on the transfer portal front for the quarterback position on various levels, whether it be highly touted guys who are still young, or whether it be veterans and proven commodities that teams can go after. So we'll talk about that more with Pete next time we have him on. We'll talk about the coaching carousel and get back to the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator search and the North Carolina offensive coordinator search as well. We'll do that whenever we can get Pete back. Hopefully it'll be on Thursday, but if not, he's a busy man, and we'll reconnect with him at a later date. So look, we really appreciate you guys sticking with us on that's a great question from 310 in UK. Has Pitt secured their freshman phenom quarterback? That is a good question. They absolutely need Mason Heinchel back into the fold. Let's see. Let's do a little Twitter search as we close out the show. Do want to thank all of you guys for being in the chat. That right there is what gets me going on my days when I had a beer league hockey game that ended at 11:50 p.m. last night. Get up and get going with you guys 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time. But no, it seems like I would be surprised if Pitt, wasn't able to retain Mason Heinchel. They've got their offensive coordinator in the right situation, Cade Bell, with him, but you never know. It is just and Pat Narduzzi did say he's confident Mason Heinchel would play in the Military Bowl versus East Carolina, which is a good sign. So that is the Twitter poll of searching that I was able to do there on the Mason Heinchel front. But it is imperative that they get him locked down. You've got to do that in today's day and age. As long as you have the right guy. If you don't feel like you have the right guy, you can go out and maybe grab a couple guys to battle and see what the chips and see what the cards reveal on that front. But really appreciate you guys being in the chat, being subscribed to the channel. Again, about 55% of you aren't subscribed to the channel that watch this stuff. So please go to All Access AM on YouTube and subscribe. Let's get to 300 by 2026. Let's set a big goal. Let's make a push, and let's do it, guys. This is going to be a fun finish to the year with the college football playoff, Texas A&M, Miami. Fingers crossed that Miami keeps it going so we can talk about the Hurricanes more and more on the ACC front in the college football playoff. But thank you to our sponsors, OPW Solutions, La La Land Foundation, and Doyle Glass for the Wednesday show. We appreciate you guys for being there with us. Over 500, nearly 600. I might as well stay live, but I'm just kidding. I've got some things to do on today, but almost 600 of you live with us this morning. So really appreciate all the support and hope you guys have a great weekend. But we will be back Thursday morning, 7 to 8 a.m. Central, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern, live on All Access AM YouTube. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm Billy Embody. Catch you then.